We accuse you, dog, of malice destruction of a book while your mommy and daddy were at work. He's completely indifferent to the accusation. But these are romance books written by Emily Loring that my wife really enjoys. Now, I myself am not into romance, but I'm not at all critical of people who do enjoy romance books. I read tons of genre stuff: mysteries, science fiction, westerns, men's action adventure stories. So it would be hypocritical of me to criticize anyone for reading romance, even though I am not into the genre myself. And she has this nice collection of books, which were bought at an estate sale years ago by her mom, who went there and saw these books for like $100 and went back at the end of the estate sale, and they were still there, and she offered 30, and the person said yes, and she brought them and gave them to Angela, who later became my wife. And she enjoys having these books. They're available electronically, but I understand being emotionally attached to physical books. I have a whole bunch of books still that I now own on my Kindle where I've kept the physical copies because there's this like personal emotional connection. And then yesterday, when I came home, j'accuse Sherlock. One of them was on the floor, having been chewed to death. Forsaking All Others by Emily Loring. First published in... When were these published? 1971? Actually, a little more recent than I would have guessed. So anyway, I ordered a replacement, a nice hardcover with this same dust jacket from a used book dealer, and it wasn't expensive, fortunately, and it's on its way. So she will have her complete collection again before long. And I said that I don't care for romances, and I don't. I can't get into them. But I did read one once. That's because I lost a bet with Angela, and I can't even remember what the bet was now. But the result of the bet was I had to read a romance novel. And she was kind-hearted in that she pulled out one with a Western theme, Sweetbriar by Brenda Wilby. And once again, I don't want to criticize the genre because I personally don't care for it. And there's well-written romance novels out there that people enjoy reading, and good for them. But reading this one myself almost broke me. You know, the eighth time it seemed, that's probably an exaggeration, that the two main characters were running across the prairie towards each other, shouting each other's names. I was begging for them to be slaughtered by the Comanches. But they weren't, and they lived happily ever after in the end, if I remember correctly. My mind has actually rejected most of the experience. So that is what she had to read once. But to be fair to my wife is awesome. And she read a couple of the things I like to read just to be awesome. She read Hands in the Dark, The Shadow. This is the first Shadow novel I ever read. Bought off the Winn-Dixie paperback rack back in 1974. Who knows? This particular edition actually has the wrong cover on it. That cover was for The Shadow, the Crime Cult, another entry in this paperback reprint series from them. These were originally published in the 30s. And so they later did put out an edition with the correct cover, but this is the one I had as a kid. This is the one I'm emotionally attached to. I don't need to have this cover anymore. I actually own the book electronically and in a more recent reprint, but I'll never get rid of this because it's just awesome and I love owning it. Angela also read, and I was surprised she read this, but she actually told me she kind of enjoyed it, an Executioner novel from the adventure series that came out in the 1970s. Panic in Philly is one of my favorite ones because in this one, Mac Bolan, who has his vendetta against the mafia, pretends to be a top mafia assassin who's going after Mac Bolan and infiltrates the Philadelphia mob and gets them to turn against each other. They're all killing each other. And it's just epically cool. And Angela read this once, just as kind of a lighthearted challenge for me to read one of my men's adventure books. So I have an awesome wife who just reads, who just occasionally will read something just to make me happy. And that's pretty cool. Now, of course, when we got married a few years ago, I had a reading list. I had to read Pride and Prejudice. And of course, this is a classic for a reason. It's clever and it's funny, and I enjoyed reading it. And I went on to read Austen's other novels as well. So that was assigned reading, but I didn't object to it at all. She told me I had to read all of the Little House on the Prairie books, but these are practically Westerns, and it's a very vivid descriptions of what it was like to grow up in the Old West. And so once again, I enjoyed reading them. That was not a burden at all. Anne of Green Gables was the other one, and I enjoyed this one so much that even though she only required me to read the first one, I did eventually read through the rest of the series. Although when Anne grew up and had kids and became just a supporting character and was no longer the motor-mouthed teenager, she wasn't as interesting. But they were still all fun books. But Anne of Green Gables is, of course, the true classic of the series. So those are the things my wife has made me read, which I did not object to reading at all, except for this one. So if you like reading romances, great, more power to you. I'm not condemning the genre because I don't care for it. But this is the time where my wife almost broke me mentally by having to read this one. But I survived. And so that is my report on what my dog ate. Bad dog. And, of course, you come home and he's eating it, and he did it hours ago as well, so you can't rebuke him because he had no idea what you're rebuking him for. So, and, other things that my wife made me read. She did not make me read the back of the DVD of Scooby-Doo. That was a recent gift from my niece. So, there we go, and just thank you for listening.